Good morning and welcome to Lost for Words. I am Sarah Woods. Please go grab your coffee, your tea, your morning beverage, get cozy and join me for a little dive back into the 1800s as we explore one of my favorite women poets, Emily Dickinson. There is a violence in walking where the flowers fall. Crepe myrtles dropping pink, fleshy hearts where feet dance, singing casualty of movement, casualty of movement, casualty of movement. If only we can save just one. I have a feeling she has just what we need. What she does with words is absolutely incredible. She's known for the older she got, the more time she spent in her room alone, more reclusive, and she spent her time hiding away, writing all this amazing poetry. Over 1,700 poems that were discovered upon her death that her family, I don't even think they realized she had been writing. So I've decided to take us on a little journey with Emily through the theme of climbing. So I picked a couple of poems of hers and we are going to dive deep into her words, her thoughts, and explore the idea of climbing in different ways that she has given us inside her poetry. First poem that we are going to explore is if you have her book, like we're opening up the Bible, but it's just poetry, not religion. Okay. We are turning to poem 554 in if you have her the complete poems of Emily Dickinson. This poem is about a blackberry, and I just love this little blackberry. So let's take a minute and read this poem. I'm going to look down at my book so you won't have complete eye contact while I read this to you. Okay. The blackberry wears a thorn in his side, but no man heard him cry. He offers his berry just the same to partridge and to boy. He sometimes holds upon the fence or struggles to a tree, or clasp a rock with both his hands, but not for sympathy. We tell a hurt to cool it, this mourner to the sky, a little further reaches instead, brave blackberry. So I just love this little blackberry. I feel like she has taken this little piece of fruit that grows wild on the ground and she's turned it into an almost a little human. She talks about this blackberry wearing a thorn in his side. So I believe blackberries are like wild shrubs that, that will grow on the ground, grow along paths. I'm pretty sure you can plant them too, but I have seen them many times on growing along a path. And they do have thorns, and they also will get these beautiful little white flowers. So it's interesting that she says he wears a thorn in his side, almost like the thorn is something he can just put on. But really, if you think about a blackberry, his thorn is a part of him. That plant, that wild blackberry plant, can no more get rid of his thorn than I can get rid of my eye. And this thorn that's a part of this blackberry causes him pain. But she says no man heard his cry. But he offers his berry just the same to partridge and to boy. I love that. I love the idea of a fruit having this human quality of a pain that it can't get rid of, but nevertheless it never stops giving to the world. It never stops offering its fruit and its beauty and sustenance to the world. Okay, so now is where we get to where the little blackberry starts to climb. It says he sometimes holds upon the fence, or struggles to a tree. So you can like visualize this blackberry as it is on its journey reaching for the sky. It clasps a rock with both his hands, but not for sympathy. So even though this little blackberry has this thorn that is a part of it, it can't get rid of it, and no one hears it cry. There's this idea that the blackberry isn't crying because it wants sympathy from everybody. It's kind of like its own little private pain to endure, maybe. It says, we tell a hurt to cool it, this mourner to the sky. So it's like we're uncomfortable with its pain, maybe? I don't know. And she's saying, we'll tell it about our pain so that it'll feel better about its pain. But the blueberry, not the blueberry, I keep wanting to call it a blueberry, it's a blackberry. But this little blackberry just keeps growing, like it keeps reaching instead. Brave blackberry, she calls it. So we try to calm it down, tell it a hurt so it won't feel its pain as much. And it almost seems like to keep it from growing, maybe, I don't know. But instead, this brave blackberry, it keeps growing and reaching for the sky in spite of its pain or others trying to stop it. And I feel like there's something very inspiring about this little fruit that grows wild along paths and is offering its sustenance to the world. I feel like if we as people were more like that, the world would be a much lovelier place. That whole idea that we, even though we have our own pain, even things that we can't get rid of, things that are past, disabilities, poverty, like just things that feel like thorns in our lives. We all have our own pain that we carry with us because we're human. Like every human has some pain, and some more than others. I like that she appreciates the blackberry's braveness, that it keeps growing and climbing and reaching and offering its fruit to the world as sustenance. And I think maybe we could even, as humans, like we could take that as offering kindness or love or gentleness or hope for someone. There's lots of things that we can offer the world that the world needs, even though we have our pain. And I think that's incredibly beautiful. All right. So Emily, we have her climbing, a blackberry climbing. We're going to explore some more. Let's see. Let's see, that was that one. I'm gonna pause this. Now we're jumping over to poem 453 in the complete works of Emily Dickinson. And now we're going to explore climbing, but with the theme of love. Who doesn't love love? Okay, here we go. Love, thou art high, I cannot climb thee, but were it two, who knows but we, taking turns at the Chimborazo, Ducal at last stand up by thee. Love, thou art deep, I cannot cross thee, but were there two, instead of one, rower and yacht, some sovereign summer, who knows but we would reach the sun? Love, thou art veiled, a few behold thee, smile and alter and prattle and die. Bliss were an oddity without thee, nicknamed by God, eternity. In this poem, Emily is giving us love and a journey. She opens up this poem and she sees love as something that is really high, something she can't climb, something, it's like love is too big. And she says, but were it two, who knows but we, taking turns at the Chimborazo, Ducal at last stand up by thee. So she has this idea that's going to run through this poem that alone, love is something she can't conquer, but if there were two, it's something that might be possible. And you see that when she says, at last stand up by thee. If there were two, but were it two, then maybe she could climb love. Then she describes love as deep. And so when she goes here and she says, love, thou art deep, there's part of me that is expecting or wanting her, like when you talk about love, like as water, as something deep, you imagine somebody like diving into it and just like swimming and indulging themselves in that water. But she sees it as something to cross. And she says, love, thou art deep, I cannot cross thee. So she's moved from climbing to crossing, but it's still like love almost feels more like an obstacle. And she says again, but were there two, instead of one, rower and yacht, some sovereign summer, who knows but we would reach the sun. So there's this idea again that love is something that she can't do or conquer alone. But if there were two, then maybe she could cross the waters, the deep waters, all the way to the horizon and reach the sun. So she's really like putting an emphasis on the power of two. I'm not completely positive what the two are, if she means people or because she says rower and yacht, but were there two instead of one, rower and yacht, almost like, is the yacht the second thing that's going, a tool that's going to help her cross this deep waters of love? And then in the first stanza where she talks about climbing love, she says, taking turns at the Chimborazo, Ducal at last stand up by thee. I have no idea what Chimborazo is or Ducal.
Me either.
So I don't know if those are things or places or I don't know. So it makes me wonder if she, when she talks about there being, if there were two, if she means like a person and a tool that will help them get, you know, like past love or get to climb the heights of love or cross the seas of love. So I don't know if she is longing for a person or if she is longing for a tool to help her make her way across these waters or to ascend these mountains. And then she says, love, thou art veiled, a few behold thee. Smile and alter and prattle and die. Bliss were an oddity without thee, nicknamed by God eternity. So she's saying love is something that we don't all get to glimpse, and yeah, very few actually get to like really experience love. And she's like, we smile, we live, we die. And then she uses this word, bliss. This is probably one of my least favorite words because it just sounds like I feel like it's one of those words like that we overuse, or not overuse, but we're just like, oh, it was bliss. Like it just sounds so like frivolous. But I think for her, it's explaining like this intense, beautiful, loving feeling. And she says, you know, bliss were an oddity without thee. So bliss, this happiness, this heaven, this joy, she is saying is an oddity without love, nicknamed by God eternity. And I like that she ends this poem with the word eternity, because this idea of love, of finding love, like it has the possibility of heaven or hell, which is what I like. That's what I think of when I think of eternity. Like you think of forever, and like, and maybe because of religion, a lot of us think of eternity as either this beautiful, blissful state of like worshiping God and angels and like eating with all the other people and seeing long lost loved ones. Or sometimes you think of hell, where you're like separated from people you love, you're separated from God, you're lonely, you're being tortured, it's either really cold or really hot and burning. All the like, you know, the people you're surrounded by aren't the beautiful angels, it's the demons. So like she boils eternity down to obtaining love. And she is saying that love is, or I feel like she's saying that love is the bliss that you get to experience, and not many people get to experience it. And so actually, like, now that I've said all this out loud, I'm almost wondering if she looks at love as something that is beyond her, and that's why she's using climbing a mountain and crossing an ocean or sea or water, that she sees love as something to obtain, and that is very far from her. And so it's like this thing maybe that she's searching after, and if she had the right tools or the right person with her, that maybe it would be possible to obtain this bliss that she wants to experience, and that only a few get to experience. And it's almost like, if there's going to be eternity, I want to experience the eternity that has love in it. So there we go. So we've gone from a little blackberry that with a thorn in its side, who kept on moving even though it was had its own private pain, its own thorns, and offering its fruit to the world, to love as this thing to ascend, to cross, to climb. And now we are going to go over to 359. swear this is so weird. I feel like I'm in church telling people to turn somewhere in the Bible, but we're just reading Emily Dickinson. All right. This is 359. I'm going to read it to you now, okay? I like my book while I read it to you. Okay, you ready? I gained it so by climbing slow, by catching at the twigs that grow between the bliss, there's that word again, and me. It hung so high, as well the sky, attempt by strategy. I said I gained it, this was all. Look how I clutch it, lest it fall. Excuse me. And I a pauper go, unfitted by an instant's grace for the contented beggar's face I wore an hour ago. I love this poem. So here she is climbing, and this time she has climbed and she has actually like gained the thing that she was after. So you can like imagine her climbing, and she says she's doing it slow. Like, you imagine her working hard, she's working slow, and she's catching in the twigs that are growing. I'm guessing maybe this is another mountain. By catching at the twigs that grow between the bliss and me. So here she is, she's climbing this, maybe a mountain. She's reaching for bliss, that word again, this happiness, this joy, this euphoric experience, this love, maybe. It hung so high, as well the sky, attempt by strategy. So she's being strategic. She's like, I'm going after this, I'm gonna get this. And it says she gained it, this was all. And then she says, look how I clutch it, lest it fall. So you get this vision of her, that she has worked and climbed to reach bliss, and she finally like reaches it, and she grabs a hold of it, and she's like, look how I clutch it lest it fall. Like, I have gained this most precious thing, and I am going to hold on to it so tightly. I'm never going to let it go. And then and the reason, she's about to explain to us the reason she holds on to it so tightly, is because she said, lest it fall, and I a pauper go, unfitted by an instant's grace for the contented beggar's face I wore an hour ago. So she realizes that if she doesn't hold on to this bliss, this thing that she was reaching after, striving after, that if she were to let it go or drop it or lose it, she would go back to being a beggar or a pauper, just like that, unfitted by an instant's grace. So it's just like that contrast of climbing and reaching bliss, and you can imagine her face, like just like the glow, the euphoria, the peace, the joy, like the brightness of her face, by getting the thing that she is like striving after. And then you get this picture of her dropping the thing that she has striven for, and you see a beggar's face. So you imagine like a face of someone like sullen and sad, maybe dirty, tired, hungry, without energy, maybe, desperate. I don't know, what do you think of? What do you think of a beggar? Somebody who's pleading. So she is no longer begging and pleading, and how quickly she could go back to being that. All this. So take a minute and get a little introspective. Do you personally have anything that you are needy for, that you would look at yourself and be like, oh, in that area I'm tired, I'm desperate, I'm a lot like a beggar, And if you were to work really hard, climbing and reaching and finally gain the thing that your soul craves more than anything or needs more than anything, how tightly would you hold on to it? And it makes me think of also, like, there's a different way to hold on to something. Like, you could hold on to something to protect it because it's priceless and precious. But then there's also the whole idea of hoarding, like where you've been in need for something for so long that when you finally are able to get that thing, you hoard it and get more and more and more of it, but you never give anything away. Like, you can't let go of anything. So I guess it could be an interesting thing to explore in your own art, in your own poetry,
Or in your own life.
or in your own life, says my daughter in the background.
With the dog.
Yeah, so maybe that is a subject we could all explore in our art and in our poetry, is what are the things that we hold on to very tightly, and do we hold on to them in a way where we have just found this precious treasure and we want to protect it and take care of it, or is it like a desperate hoarding of that thing or that idea or that feeling or whatever it is, that keeps us, does it keep us from being like the blackberry, that even though we have our inner pain, that we don't keep giving our fruit and our love and things to the world, that we don't offer sustenance back to the world. Okay, I'm gonna stop there for that one. And I've got one more, and it's, this last one is cute and funny, I think. It's very short, so it won't take long. And this one is about strawberries. So we have a lot of berries in these poems also. So we're not only climbing, we've got a lot of bliss and a lot of berries. Okay, this is number 251. And all right. Over the fence, strawberries grow. Over the fence, I could climb. If I tried, I know. Berries are nice, but if I stained my apron, God would certainly scold. Oh dear, I guess if he were a boy, he'd climb if he could. I love this poem because, like, you can, it's short, but it paints like a very vivid picture for me. Like, I can see Emily Dickinson, you know, like walking along, and then there's this fence and she looks over it and there's like all these strawberries and she's like, yes. And she sees her bliss, you know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, look at all this beautiful red, sweet, juicy fruit on the other side of this fence. And she's like, I could climb if I tried. I know I could do this. And she's like, berries are nice. Like, she's convincing herself, like, duh, I should do this. But then she's like, but if I stained my apron, God would certainly scold. So we have this like picture of God, you know, like this, for me anyway, I imagine this like God up in heaven who's like, let me put the book down, who's like looking over, like looking down from the sky, and who's like, look at this little girl. Stay out of those strawberries, Emily. And she's like, God would certainly scold. So she's like imagining like, okay, look at all those beautiful strawberries. I so want to climb over there and get them. But certainly God will be furious with me if I try to eat those strawberries. And so then I love what she does. She like imagines that God is like human. She imagined that he is a young boy, and takes him off of his pedestal and out of his realm of perfection, where, because if you think about it, if you imagine God up there scolding, and like up in the sky and mad at her for trying to get strawberries, you imagine like this God that's like perfect and doesn't need the strawberries. But she is, I love this, she imagines God as a human, as a boy, and she's like, if God were a boy, then he would have the same need as me, and I am almost positive he would climb if he could. And so I just feel like you have this very, like, it's very cute and very short, and it's very
Funny.
it's kind of funny. So in all of these little poems of Emily's, we see this theme of climbing and reaching. Definitely like her envisioning something beyond her and climbing towards it and reaching towards it. Even the blackberry was climbing, across rocks and trees and fences towards the sky, and kept going, like, even though it had pain. And then this reaching for bliss in her poems, and love, and now the strawberries. She is, you can feel that sense that there is this happiness that is beyond her, this love that is beyond her, this bliss that is beyond her, that there is something beyond her that she is searching for, reaching for. There is this happiness, this love, this bliss, these strawberries that they're either beyond a mountain or beyond the sea or beyond this fence, that there's something separating her from these things that she is reaching for and that she has to figure out a way to get across. And I feel like there's something very human about that, that's inside of all of us, that really it's that longing for things beyond us that I feel like helps keep us going and hopeful and excited about life. That if everything were right here in front of us and perfect, there would be no need to like climb or reach or look. But I also don't think it means that all bliss and all the strawberries and all the love is only beyond us. I think that would be a dangerous way of looking at life, that it's not. If it's something that's always beyond you, it's not something that you can experience, and that would be a very sad life. Think of that beggar, So, I don't know, it makes me think about the importance of cultivating like joy and bliss and love in our lives, like right where we are. That it does take work, probably, I'm sure, but it's not always only beyond us. It is beyond us and something we can reach for, but I think it's also something we can pull into our now. If you look at our Instagram and Facebook and our social media, like you can see people like all over the world like sharing these little moments where they like grasp at and achieve love and happiness, like when they get married or get engaged or they have a baby, they get a new car, their child learns to walk. We're all like showing off those moments. My dog is walking around, so it's gonna totally ruin my video. She is loud. But if you you think about it, we're all really a lot more like the Little Blackberry than what we show on our social media. That really, we all have that like pain that we experience in life, and but we keep going. That isn't necessarily the part that we show to the world. We like to show the parts where we're like gaining bliss and like, look, we gained it. But in reality, we all have that pain and that thorn that's a part of our life too. So that is one of the reasons that I love poetry, and I love art and music, because it allows us to express such a wide gamut of reality and feelings and what's happening on the inside. I just feel like that is so important right now in this day and age, where everything is it feels so focused on the outside of us. Like this, this is my face, this is my body. This is how God made me. These are my clothes. But this isn't the most important part of me. It isn't a not important part of me, but I feel like sometimes our focus is so much on the external things that sometimes we forget about the humanness and the spirit and the soul that's happening on the inside of people, just because we see so many images these days. Anyway, we are going to bring this video to an end. And thank you for joining me today on Lost for Words as we explored one of my favorite female poets, Emily Dickinson. Let me know in the comments if this episode inspired your art in any way, if it encouraged you to write a poem, write a song, paint a painting, and share it with us. If you want me to, I have another account on Instagram. It's called Paper is My Lover. If you would like to follow me over there, you could also, you're welcome to send me poems, paintings, music that are inspired by this episode. And it's possible that on the next episode, I might possibly share some of your art
Really? Daddy again.
Dog.
We know.
Trying to make these videos with a dog in the house is like just wrong on so many levels. Go on over to Paper is My Lover on Instagram and share any art that you create that might be inspired by Emily and her beautiful poetry, exploring the things beyond her, the reaching and the climbing. And let me know if it inspired any of your artwork, and maybe on my next episode I will share your artwork. All right. Thanks for joining me. Love you.